who or what fills my own cup? Was first diagnosed with MS. I had to relearn how to be a human again. And I know that story right there is pretty universal to people who have gone through some sort of chronic illness. Or I normally my default mode, if you will, is to put a smile on my face.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I deal with depression. It's how I deal with anxiety. I feel like I am probably the epitome of what it means to have an invisible illness, because it's difficult to talk about, but I think I know that it really does tie in with my MS diagnosis and that whole journey.
Yeah, I did want to let the audience know just before Hannah telling her story. We'll be talking about rape, and I know it can be a sensitive subject for some people. It's just as a heads up. So, all right, continue, please. Sorry.
I even remember him telling me at some point, well, you're lucky I don't hit you. You're lucky I don't beat you. And I remember taking that to heart. I remember at that point when he said that, I was already so mentally beaten down that I was grateful. The R word. I never addressed rape. It took me a long time to even acknowledge the word abuse. Yeah, he carried a piece of my soul with him. And so I feel like when he passed away in 2016, that's when my first MS symptoms started. I was just so distressed and so distraught.
Like, if you had to rely on me to paint something, like, the world is going to collapse because I can't do it.
I bet you if I was your teacher, the world wouldn't collapse.
I don't know what...
I think we could do it.
I don't know. I mean, not to get, like, childish, I guess, but I drew dicks when I was in high school. So if you need dicks, I can draw a dick for you if you need it.
You can draw a dick.
Yeah. I know people will be like, oh my god, like the devil is after me and such, but I think it just happened coincidentally, but I don't think there's any like invisible force that like did all these things. So it's just all in the mind to me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to agree with you,
And it's like can't fathom some god with like I'm gonna have this disease that will hurt this person and then it affects the family and such, and it's really just fucked up thinking that like a religious person would say I deserve this disease in some way, and I think that's just so fucked up.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100% right there. It may seem impossible to ever, go back to the way you were before whatever your diagnosis was, and you may never go back. Sometimes these things are life altering, and so I can tell you right now that I have had social anxiety to the point where I could barely even look at people in the eye. Like it just...
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Two Mics, One Joe Suits. I am Joe Suits. I'll be giving a mic and paintbrush to Hannah. Hannah has multiple sclerosis and bouts of depression and artist block. This episode will be different. Hannah is a teacher in art and painting and drawing, and a non-licensed therapist mixed in. This will be different where I wanted Hannah to paint something she likes and to talk about herself. Are you ready to talk about yourself?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so let's walk us what you'll be doing today.
Yeah, okay. So normally I am a teacher. That's what I do. So today I'm going to be something that's a little bit more for me. So I have this huge canvas here, and I don't even know what size it is, but I love the style, the shape of it. So I want to actually do a mixed media painting. I'm going to be using this heavy gel media, and I'm going to be putting it on there using palette knives. So you can see I have some palette knives right here. And then once that's all dry, I'm going to put some alcohol inks right on top of it. So it's going to be in a similar vein to this painting right here of my puffer fish. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but he's sort of hidden under the water right up here at the top. And I chose to paint my puffer fish because I had him for 14 years. Pets are a huge portion of my life, and it's sort of a running joke that I have a zoo in my apartment. And my puffer fish, He was very aptly named Puffy. And so I'd like to honor him since he recently passed away about 2 weeks ago at 14 years old. I've had him that whole time, so I'm going to honor him with another painting because I very often paint him. And in fact, I have a bunch of little mementos of him back there.
Well,
So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing.
not
Do
Molly
you have
the
any
spider.
questions, Joe? I'm a teacher, so I the spider. So that's the spider. That's Molly, not a real spider, but I've named her Molly, and she's got a little baby somewhere down there. I don't know if you guys can see the baby.
Oh,
Baby's unnamed right yet,
okay.
so right now. So if you have name suggestions, I'm all ears.
Let's do I like Selena. Let's do Selena.
Selena. Okay, her name is Selena. Her mother is Molly.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, that's
There you go.
that's what's up. So would
Mm-hmm.
you like to start drawing, or should I start asking questions as you go along?
Yeah, so why don't we dive into the questions and I'll just start doing things.
Perfect.
That
Okay.
sound all right?
Yeah, let's do this.
Cool.
Yeah, this is my first
Cool.
this is my first episode of actually doing something with a person, not just chatting with a person, so they don't have to see me at all. So that's awesome. But okay. So Hannah is an artist and resident for a San Antonio-based nonprofit organization called Heart Needs Art. It brings the arts to patients facing life-altering health challenges. Her time is spent with patients at the outpatient setting and inpatient settings at a local hospital. She works to design, implement, and engage with patients with collaborative arts projects, group art projects, window paintings, live art demonstration, and patient bedside activities. So this job requires you to pour out of your own cup. Who or what fills your own cup?
Who or what fills my own cup? Well, I mentioned my animals, my pets, my babies. Art, of course, that's a huge one too. Although I don't always get to do art for myself. But when I do actually find the time and the mental energy to sit down and do something for myself, like it's extremely beneficial in more ways than one. And it's funny, but I don't always practice what I preach. I always preach about, this exact same topic. I always preach about how, it's really important to do these things, and yet I don't always find myself doing it myself. And that's for many, many reasons, honestly. I won't get into that, but okay, so what else fills my cup? I also love to hike. I love to walk outside and just generally be outside. I don't always get to do that either because I live in South Texas where it is, I don't know, like 90 to 100 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
80% of the year, something like that. And I have multiple sclerosis, so I'm very heat sensitive. Some people are more cold
Okay.
sensitive. I happen to be more heat
Of
sensitive.
course you are.
So of course, living in South Texas, why wouldn't I be? But yeah, but it does, that's what fills my cup though. Like especially this time of the year during the fall. I love it, and I will absorb as much outside time as I can.
So, like, when you go to
What else can I
these
say about that?
hospitals, how do you like mentally prepare to help others while you're dealing with your own shit?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that delves into finding, basically am always I'm there for them. That's basically the idea behind all of my interactions with hospital patients. It's not my time to talk about me. It's time to listen to them and shut everything else down and be there for them in the best way that I can possibly be. So when I'm there at patients' bedsides, it means that I get to um, shut off the world around me and focus solely on the people in front of me. And so I love it. I enjoy absorbing people's stories. I enjoy listening to people, no matter if they're talking to me about their struggles or if they're talking to me about their life in general. And I don't really steer the conversation one way or another. It's usually people will start talking to me about whatever's on their mind. Sometimes people will start to build a rapport with me, and so I'll go and see multiple people multiple times. And so sometimes that helps to sort of tear down walls, but usually it doesn't really take much because I'm doing art with them. And then art is usually the tool that will break down walls for me. So here's an example. I love to do, one of my favorite things to do is window painting, window art for people. And I'll go in there and I'll introduce myself. I'll get to know them a little bit and ask them what they want to do. Do they want to watch me do a painting, or do they want to do a painting with me? And so normally if you're feeling really bad, if you're going through chemo, people will tell me, "Oh, I just want to watch something," because chemo takes a lot out of people. And that's probably like the understatement of the year. But so they'll watch me, and the painting will be specifically for them. So I could do a picture of their pets right there on the window. I could do, I don't know, I could take them into a forest and I'll draw a tree or something. I'll draw a bunch of trees. I could take them into a field by drawing a bunch of flowers on their bedroom wall or bedroom window. So it means a lot of things to a lot of people. Once I get started on the painting, that's when the conversation really gets going. So people will talk to me about their life. People will talk to me about their diagnosis and their cancer treatment and journey, all without me having to prompt them. So I feel like I've been able to really learn about the world and about life and about people and about illnesses in general just by listening to them talk to me. I don't always share my diagnosis of MS with them because, like I said, this is an interaction about them. It's for them. But sometimes I may feel like sharing my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis could help them in some way. And it normally does end up helping people when they see somebody who is in their room just trying to hang out and be with them. It seems like it's comforting. It's a comforting idea.
Well, it's like so they don't have to like. I mean, they are explaining it, but they don't have to explain as much because you can understand their pain that they're going through.
Yeah, especially when people talk about cog fog and they talk about losing the ability to do certain things. And I feel like for me, when I, was first diagnosed with MS, I had to relearn how to be a human again. And I know that story right there is pretty universal to people who have gone through some sort of chronic illness or maybe are still going through, something that's life altering. And I feel like I felt like a baby. I felt like a child again. Even though I never really had to sit in a wheelchair, but sometimes I do feel like I probably could benefit from a cane even now. It's just I forgot where I was going with that. Memory loss is a thing. It's a thing, guys.
Well,
Anyway,
well, I'll ask you,
I
how do you
go
feel
ahead.
that the roles are reversed now that you're the one that I'm the one that's absorbing everything. You're the one that's just chatting about your life.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I don't always get to talk about my diagnosis and my journey in depth, although I have before on camera. But it's so easy to be absorbed in day-to-day life and things going on a daily basis. You just kind of lose yourself, I guess. Yeah, this is very therapeutic for me too, especially since I'm basically playing with clay, modeling paste right here. Like, it's so fun for me to just like smear things on a canvas. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is this is very therapeutic, just talking and doing art myself for once.
Yeah, so I'm filling up your cup now.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I get it. It can be very intimidating. Like I get it from like when you go to the hospital, like you don't want to share your story because obviously about them, and I get it from my podcast. Like I never talk about myself too either because it's not like you didn't come here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about you and such. But it also can be very daunting just to talk about yourself because it's these deep traumatic moments of complexities and like dark feelings and thoughts that you would kind of never thought would be possible in a human, but it is. But then it's also very hard to like express how you're feeling too. It could be to really anyone, especially on the camera. It just can be extremely intimidating. Like, how are you feeling sharing your story?
Yeah, yeah, and I think you hit on a good point. I normally my default mode, if you will, is to put a smile on my face,
Mm-hmm.
It's how I deal with depression. It's how I deal with anxiety. I feel like I am probably the epitome of what it means to have an invisible illness because I tend to need to absorb things and think about things before I can talk about them. And so often that involves me putting on a smile and pushing it to the back of my head until I can no longer push it to the back of my head. So the perfect example of that is something that happened today. And right now, like it's difficult to talk about, but I think it not I think I know that it really does tie in with my MS diagnosis and that
Uh,
whole journey.
Here, I did want to let the
Um,
audience know just before Hannah telling her story. We'll be talking about rape, and I know it can be a sensitive subject for some people. It's just as a heads up. So, all right, continue, please. Sorry.
yeah, I know that's a good thing. I feel like, in the words of wise boomers out there, I was triggered this morning. And I happened to see, just by chance, like before going on this show and being interviewed by you, a friend of mine who is part of a photography group here in town happened to photograph my ex, an ex of mine. And this ex basically, okay, there's no easy way to say it, but he raped me when I was younger, when I was in high school and going on to the beginnings of college. And so it was never violent. I even remember him telling me, this guy, this ex, I even remember him telling me at some point, well, you're lucky I don't hit you. You're lucky I don't beat you. And I remember taking that to heart. I remember at that point when he said that, I was already so mentally beaten down that I was grateful that he didn't beat me. And I never told this to anyone. For years, nobody knew this. And this was on multiple occasions that he verbally abused me. It was never physical. I'll take that back. It was physical at some point when he had some what was it, the BB guns, not BB guns, the airsoft guns. He
Mm-hmm.
had those airsoft guns, and I remember him
Yeah.
chasing me around, and I was truly terrified. I was really afraid that he was really going to hurt me, and he wouldn't stop. So I guess you could call that physical abuse, but he never, anyway. I remember, because mental health back then, mind you, this was in like end of the 2000s, early 2010s. Nobody was talking about mental health. Nobody was talking about mental health at all. Nobody was really talking about mental abuse, and that's a thing. And I had been thinking these things. I had been thinking for years that that's got to be some form of abuse right there. But I never came out with it. I never talked about it because nobody else was talking about it. So I told myself that I was crazy and I was probably just imagining things. But it is a form of abuse, and he did rape me. It took me years and years to even acknowledge that word, let alone the word abuse. And so this ties in with multiple sclerosis in many ways. Basically, try to think of a timeline now. I've I broke up with him in the early 2010s. I want to say even 2010. I broke up with him because finally, after years, I think we were together for like 3 years. Finally, I had decided that I'd had enough, and he was treating me like I was a prison inmate, like I had done something horrible at some point. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm not this horrible person. I need to move away from this. I'm not a bad person at all. I was very timid. I was very shy and socially anxious, and I wasn't who he made me believe I was. So I broke up with him, and it was very difficult to do, but I did it. I'm very proud of myself for
Yeah,
doing
I'm proud
that.
of you too.
Thank you. Um, I but I still never addressed the R word. I never addressed rape. I never it took me a long time to even acknowledge the word abuse. So I I was already prone to anxiety, but after my ex, after I where was I going with this? Memory loss. Basically, after Robbie, I had to build myself up again. But my anxiety had already snowballed. I was a depressed person without even realizing that I was a depressed person. I was a very, very socially awkward and very, very anxious person, to the point where I should have sought help for that at the time, but I didn't, because like I mentioned, mental health issues just were not talked about back then, so I didn't know where to turn to. I bottled everything up, everything. And so this even delves into the idea of sex. Sex was and still is very painful, physically painful for me, because of my experiences back then in 2010s, and it's now 2022. So yeah, it's been a very, very long battle for me that I'm still dealing with. So I was going to talk about MS. So now this delves into MS, because for all those years, I didn't do art. Many years. I was in school, of course. I went to school for art, but that artwork didn't have any soul. It was very superficial. And it was superficial because I could not handle the idea of coming to terms with my mental illness and my mental issues, all of which started with that boyfriend back then. So my art lacked a lot of things. And so after I graduated from college in 2014, I didn't have the desire to do art anymore. I didn't have the desire. I didn't think that I was really very good anyway. Aside from a few pieces of work that I did on plexiglass that I still love to this day, and I still would love to continue that series. But other than that, I just moped around the house, and all my 20s I didn't go partying. I didn't like hang out with friends as much as I wanted to. I just was a sad hot mess that lived inside my own little head. All because I didn't want to address my mental health issues. And so fast forward from 2014 to 2016, 2 years out of college by that point, and my pets were my life. I mentioned already, I talked about my pufferfish already, but I had a pet rat back then, and my pet rat, like, it's my soul. Like, this rat carried a piece of my soul with him, and his name's Polka, and
Such a cute name.
yeah. Thank you. Pokka. Yeah, he carried a piece of my soul with him. And so I feel like when he passed away in 2016, that's when my first MS symptoms started. I was just so distressed and so distraught from his passing. And so those symptoms happened. It was really, it wasn't much, it was numbness and tingling, which I still experience to this day. Like, those symptoms never actually went away. But I'm going to put the fan on real quick.
Okay.
I just needed to, I needed to go faster. I sure hope this doesn't take very long.
But before you continue your story, let's talk about what you're working on with the painting. How is the painting going?
Yeah, so I've just finished putting in more texture, a ton of texture. And so I don't know how well you can see this, but there is a space right here that's in the shape of my pufferfish. It's a very general shape of my
Mm-hmm.
pufferfish. I've drawn and even I've made like little ceramic figurines of my pufferfish many times before, so I didn't really actually need to sketch him out specifically. So I've got the general shape of my pufferfish puffy right here, and then just texture right all along here. And so the idea is to have all of this texture for the alcohol inks over here to climb up and around and sort of wrap itself into all these little crevices in here. I'm hoping, so I have an idea of how it's going to turn out in my mind. I don't know if it's going to turn out that way, but like life is a whole experiment. So this is what I like to do in my art. I like to experiment with, everything.
So,
So
are you using a fan to dry the clay?
I am, yeah. So
Okay.
I know I said clay earlier, but it's modeling paste.
Okay.
So it needs to dry before I can put the alcohol inks on top.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
excited to see it come to fruiton.
Fruit Loops
No.
come to fruition.
Whatever the final piece of whatever you have imagined, because I can't do art for shit. So, like if you had to rely on me to paint something, like the world is gonna collapse because I can't do it.
I bet you if I was your teacher, the world wouldn't collapse.
Uh, I'm, I mean, I don't know what.
I think we could do it.
I don't know. Not to get like childish, I guess, but I drew dicks when I was in high school. So if you need dicks, I can draw a dick for you if you need a.
You can draw a dick.
Yeah. So,
I mean, if that's what your soul is being called
I
to,
mean,
I'm all for it.
I don't know if my soul was there or
See,
just
this is
for shits and giggles, but yeah, that's what I drew in high school. I just drew them in large thing in the back of people's notebooks.
uh-huh.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
wild times.
I think I think a lot of little kids can say that. I don't know if you remember like way back in like middle school and high school, like everybody would draw that little S thing. Like
Yeah.
it's three lines and you connect the three lines together. I I'd have to demonstrate it for you, I think. If only I
Yeah, I
could
know what
like
you're talking about, but like I was like looking into the history of it. There's no like history to it. Like it's not like a company owns it. Not like a clan or a gang or anything. It's just something that it got creative out of the blue and just no one knows what it means. We still don't know what it means.
yeah. We still don't know. Yeah, see, here we are still debating the S thing. And I bet you most people our age are going to know what the S thing is. Um,
Yeah, I
but
don't
it's
think.
funny because I went to, huh?
Yeah, I don't think young kids even know what it is. I mean, we're so old.
Right? Right. Here I am talking about like being in high school, like end of the 2000s. In like 2008 is when I graduated high
It's
school.
like 40 years ago.
So you can I know. It's I just go by 104 now. I just had my birthday recently, so I'm now 104,
Okay, happy
in case you were
birthday.
wondering. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
So I went to Catholic school, and
uh,
the S thing by default was the symbol of Satan when you when you
uh,
go to Catholic school. So naturally, all the kids were drawing it on their notebooks.
oh, like I think like we're going in a total different direction, but I think the devil is actually like a cool person.
God.
I think they're like the cool person that everyone hates, but like I think he's like a good person. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, the devil. Yeah, we could go into a totally different direction here. Like that's a whole nother thing. I we don't have to include this in the recording, but uh like I remember my dad was atheist, and so my mom Catholic, my dad atheist. You can kind of imagine the
Yeah, that's so
dynamic
weird.
there.
And you're in a Catholic school? Okay.
It wasn't I don't think my dad really cared
Mm-hmm.
that much. He only cared that it cost so much money. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I remember like he basically like he tried to find God at some point, but he really like it didn't work for him. And I think that that kind of translated onto me. Like I don't really identify with being Catholic or even Christian really, but you know, the golden rule, I don't know how well versed you are in stuff like that, but
Well,
I do.
my history was that I went to private school till high school, and my graduation was the last time I ever entered a church. And then like my story is like I had my health battles and such, and like 5 years after high school, I was going to a lot of health things, and then I just became an atheist, and then like that same week, I had a cross on my window, like a night glass cross on it, and it broke and shattered in two, broke in two, and then I had a necklace of a cross too because like
It's kind of
everyone wears it,
creepy.
and then it that broke too, like in the
Uh-huh.
same time frame, and I was like, I guess this is it. I'm moving on, and never looked back.
I guess this is it. Yeah. Yeah. That's a little creepy. It is a little creepy. I may not be like a believer in God itself, but I think there are creepy
Hmm.
things that happen out there.
I feel like
I
everything
never
it's
like to
just
discredit ghost stories.
yeah, I think everything is just like it just comes down to luck and just random chances. Like I know people will be like, "Oh my god, like the devil is after me" and such, but I think it just happened coincidentally. But I don't think there's any like invisible force that like did all these things. So it's just all in the mind to me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to agree with you. Like I still don't consider myself an atheist, but I'm not really like a believer either. I guess I'm more agnostic. I believe that you spread love and kindness. That's very hippie-ish, I guess, but like I believe in love and I believe in kindness and I believe that you get what you give out into the world. And so I try to embody that idea with everything that I do. And I guess we could include this in the
I
in the
definitely will.
recording. I don't know yet. It's all going back to MS now, so why not? Like I just feel like whenever I was in the hospital and whenever I was like actually seeking help for my MS, not just in the doctor's setting, but like with around other people too, I came to believe in the power of kindness and people a lot more than I had before because I could see that this community and at least the good, you know, the beginning doctors, that's a whole nother story right there. But there were so many people that I came into contact with that wanted to help me and wanted to share their experiences with me. And that was inspiring to me. And I know my mom was trying to get me to go to church a lot more often after I was diagnosed, but I still didn't feel that connection to the God of the Bible. I felt love and kindness all around me. And in nature too. I feel it in nature. And I felt like, and I still feel like that's enough for me. That's enough of, spirituality that I am content with. Love and kindness and doing to others that, not doing to others that you would have them do unto you is something that I kept with me from my Catholic school years. So it's not all bad. I just feel like if we were just kinder to each other, the world wouldn't be the way it is. And it's so simple and yet so difficult to
Yeah,
understand
yeah. It's
sometimes.
always weird with the disabled community. Some go like really hard into the religious faith, and then it's more rare that people become, an atheist in sort of way. Like to me, I just can't fathom a God wanting to that created these diseases for us to have. For like can understand karma in a way, but like I'm a good person. I mean, I don't know who you are behind the scenes, but like I don't think we deserve these diseases at all. Anyway, and it's like can't fathom some
Yeah.
God with like I'm gonna have this disease that will hurt this person, and then it affects the family and such, and it's really just fucked up thinking that like a religious person would say I deserve this disease in some way, and I think that's just so fucked up.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100% right there. Yeah, like so many people don't deserve their disease. No, nobody really deserves their disease. So yeah, I understand, when people go towards God and it if it helps them to cope, then that's, I wish them the best. I really am happy for them if their faith helps them cope. It's really all about you and all about how you are able to cope with the world with the tools that you have. So if you have religious tools and if it speaks to you, if the Bible speaks to you, then yeah, I am all for that. As long as you don't like infringe on my rights. Just don't
I,
don't stop me
I,
from any
I,
of
I
my
get
rights,
it. Like, it
please.
helps people become like, I guess, more empowered and stuff. But I think it's also a toxic. I think it's more toxic the deeper you believe in it, because like you're expecting God to help you with everything, but in the reality of things,
Mm,
you're the one that has to put in the work to do anything you want it to be. So like, one of my goals is that I want to be like, I want to be verified on Instagram, have a huge following and such, and like the only way for me to do that is to put in the work to do to find the guests and interview them and edit and all that. Like don't want to have to put the work in. God is not just gonna give it to me. And then let's say I do become rich and famous, and then I'm gonna thank God for it. I'm like, no, I'm the one that put all the work into it, and I'm reaping the awards now. But it's all me, not God. Like He
mhm.
didn't do anything to. But but it would be dumb, because if God wanted me to be big, then I should make one video and I would be rich and famous already, instead of me working for 2 or 3 years. So it doesn't
Mhm.
logically make sense that if if I want to be big, I have to put in the work. God is not just gonna give it to me. Because in reality, we think that's how the, the world works. The more work you put into it, the bigger you'll get. Simple as that.
And I think that's
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think that that's it's especially important for somebody with a chronic illness to understand. If you're having to build up your life again and sort of, you know, relearn how to be a human again,
Hmm.
where do your hopes and dreams fit into that? Sometimes it may seem impossible to ever, go back to the way you were before your whatever your diagnosis
Hmm.
was, and you may never go back. Sometimes these things are life altering, and so if you're putting too much, I guess, if you're leaning too much into your faith, and I could be wrong for any other listeners, but if you're leaning too much into your faith, you sort of like sometimes it puts a stop to your growth as a person. And for those who do have high aspirations like yourself, you're right when you say like that was all you that put in all the hard work. Like you have to be thankful, not be thankful, you have to give yourself that credit. You have to give yourself that, put the credit where it is due, because it was you who lifted yourself up with the help of other people, of course, yes, but it was you that really told yourself to keep on going, and you had that drive to keep on going.
I mean, I know it
I
helps
don't
a
know if
lot
that
of
makes
other
sense.
people to like believe in something. Because I feel like most humans have to believe in something, and like believe in like someone that's like watching over you and like gracing your steps, and like when you fall down, you're carrying you and all that bullshit. But like to
Mm-hmm.
me, coming up from my deep depression bout, I'm living on self love right now. I don't really have anyone around me to like replenish my cup, if that makes sense, or anything like that. Like I'm in this. I'm
Yeah.
I'm surviving on self love for like the past basically my entire life. It's just been self-love. And then now I'm just, I want people in my life, but they just don't meet, I guess, what I'm not capable of, but like my caliber of a person. And like I'm surviving on, yeah, I'm just surviving on self-love. And I think for a lot of people that's really hard, but I kind of have to go with it because I like listen to the laws of society and just follow those laws because that's a very consistent of if you're working hard, you're gonna make it big. Like I'm not gonna pray to God every night because for one, that's a waste of time. I could use that time for something else. And then two, I'm not reliant on anyone's opinion either. And so like I'm on just self love, producing all this content, saying whatever I comes to my mouth and just saying out loud. And if people like it, great. If they don't, then I can't. You don't like me, I'll just move on. Like that's really it. And I'm just gonna keep moving. But yeah, I've been living on self love for basically my entire life. Every time I had a depression battle, I I sat there and I brought myself out of it again, time and time again. And I guess now I feel more empowered that I don't need anyone to do any of this. I can just power through everything that has been thrown against me.
I think that right there, like I can relate to needing to the idea of needing to look inward for your self-love because what you said made me think about my time with ex-boyfriend Robbie and then tying that back into MS. Because I mentioned that he tore me down mentally to the point where I was very, very extremely socially anxious. Like I've never been diagnosed by a medical professional, but I can tell you right now that I have had social anxiety to the point where I could barely even look at people in the eye. Like it just, I couldn't, what's the word? I felt so small and little and tiny and insignificant that I felt like a scared animal, like a scared squirrel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking people's eyes and I had to avert my eyes and not look at them because I was afraid that they were going to see me. I was afraid that they were going to see me for who I was. And I wasn't happy with who I was. I didn't think that I was a good person. I didn't think that I was worth being looked at. When I say it was bad, it was really bad. And so I had a lot of building up to do, which took more than a decade to do. Because I broke up with him in like 2011 or something, or 2010, I don't know. And I mentioned I mentioned all that anxiety and depression that followed, despite me actually being able to find another person. I got into another relationship with somebody else who did lift me up and did help me, but he couldn't help me with my sex issues. And that's a whole nother thing too. That's a whole nother topic too, is, I couldn't really be intimate without being in pain. And that caused anxiety, like crazy. And every aspect of my life, whether it be the way I interacted with people on the outside and the way I interact with people behind closed doors. So I'm pretty sure that my MS symptom developed as a result of my rat dying, passing away of old age, because I just remember just that sinking feeling of dread and grief. Like I didn't have too many people. Well, I guess Poca wasn't a person, but I just felt like he was part of my soul,
Yeah.
He was just part of my being. He was my child, and he passed away. So, yes, I was with that same person, that same boyfriend. This is the one after Robbie. I was with this other person when Poca passed away, and yes, he was a comfort, but not. There's still a part of you that dies along with somebody of that caliber, like Poca. I remember I was diagnosed with MS in 2017.
I have
This
here
was
you would.
around 6 months or so.
I have here you were diagnosed on June 28th, 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, June 28th, 2017. And I felt like, well, if I'm having to go through all of these physical symptoms that are tearing me down, maybe I should start thinking about my mental health too. I don't know if this would be a good time to go into like the symptoms of my MS because they were pretty drastic. It was a lot.
Yeah, so let's kind of back up a little bit. So it's have here that you were actually developing symptoms in college, and you kind of just didn't do anything about it. You just thought maybe it was a cold or a flu
Yeah,
or just
let's.
some strange phenomenon. So like, how did I have here the symptoms included your rib cage being feeling? I guess feeling that they were crushed and a weight on your chest.
Mhm. Yeah, we can backtrack to all that. I think that's a good idea. So I'll go back to college then. So let's see. When I was in college, I did develop my first symptoms of MS, and they were very subtle. Like, I remember being dizzy as I was walking through the hallways and walking outside, especially. I would be dizzy, I'd get really lightheaded, and I'd have to sit down and sort of get my bearings again. And by this point, I want to say this was maybe 2012, 2013, or something. By this point, my thought was that I'm probably just stressed because I'm going to graduate soon
Yeah.
with my undergraduate degree. This is probably normal. Like the way,
Mhm.
like this, how I rationalize it in my head. I was like, this is just normal stuff. I'm sure. I'm sure of it.
Mhm.
So I would just have to sit down every once in a while. I remember at some point my vision becoming pretty bad. My vision, and honestly, I when I thought about my vision and how I would have to like squint a little bit to like read things. No, I didn't have to squint. It was looking at things from far away that they were blurry. That's what it was. I just remember thinking, oh, it's probably my time to get glasses because most of the females in my family have glasses. So I was
Mhm.
just like, okay, it's just my turn now. So I went to an ophthalmologist and went through that whole routine. And it was very like cut and dry for that ophthalmologist. There was really no room for me to talk about my symptoms, nothing. And so she'd even told me at some point that I would probably have to come back to her to get my lenses adjusted. So I just said yes because I'm in college. I'm in my early 20s at this point and
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing with life. So And so, yeah, I did that. But the weird thing was that the glasses sometimes helped me, but sometimes they didn't help me. But sometimes they would help me in one eye, but
Huh.
not the other eye.
That's
So it
so
was just a
strange.
weird thing. And because I, yeah, it was weird. And with MS, we, it's very common for people who have MS to develop something called optic neuritis. And it's exactly that. It's where your myelin nerves are destroyed, your optic nerves are destroyed by the MS. And so I didn't realize that that's what was happening because I didn't know anything about MS.
Mhm.
Um, I was just, concerned with college. And I wore these glasses. It was pretty silly of me, but I wore these glasses for about 3 years after I got them, despite the fact that sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't work in
Mhm.
one eye. So I was just too concerned with pummeling through my life to really even just address something that's literally right there on my face.
Yeah. You have so much
So I
shit to
didn't
worry
address
about.
it. Yeah, exactly. I have so much shit to worry about. Why am I going to worry about changing my glasses? So I just pummeled through life that way. And,
Developing symptoms with
well,
heaviness of chest and then tightness of ribs.
oh, yes. Yes. There were, well, in addition to that, there was even an entire year, a year, where I had migraines either every day or every other day, and no insurance to do anything about this. No insurance. I was just under the impression that this is just what it's like to get to become older. I think at that point I was graduated from college by the time the migraines came along. So I was just like, okay, this is what it means to be older now. So I didn't do anything about the migraines, but it was a very painful year. I had even, right after college, I remember experiencing symptoms of heat intolerance. So basically, I was very, very sensitive to heat and didn't even realize that I was sensitive to heat. I just had noticed that one year was better than another in regards to how I was handling the heat outside. And I thought I was crazy. I just thought, okay, this is a weird thing, but I'm sure it's normal. I'm just going to go about living my life. I'm sure this is all just fine. And this is making me think of that one meme with the dog in a burning background. That
Yeah.
was me at some point. I was like, this is all just fine. And it wasn't really fine. Guys, get help. Get help when you feel like you need it.
Before I take the mic
Yeah.
away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote, any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers? The mic is all yours.
Winning lottery numbers. Ooh, if you have winning lottery numbers, please give them to me because I have plans. If I become rich, I have plans, and they're all like plans to help other people. So give me some money, please. Um, if you, yeah, just add me on Instagram and keep up with me, That's all. No words of wisdom.
Okay.
Just bye.
Alright, so you can follow Hannah. Her Instagram handle is on the screen below her face somewhere. Thank you, Hannah, for giving me your time and expertise and especially your expertise with this artwork. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.